All right. The first thing that we want to understand is, Benjamin, how you doing? Is that theater has a lot of different ways of being expressed, especially in our modern culture, right? And one of the hey Scott, how you doing? One of the misconceptions in terms of the first categories that we're going to talk about is drama. A lot of people think drama is a category of theater that involves seriousness, high conflict levels, but drama is actually the umbrella term for two different categories of theater: comedies and tragedies, right? So those two categories fall under the umbrella of drama, comedy and tragedy. Now, comedy doesn't have to be something that's a ha ha laughing kind of comedy. Hey Maddie, how you doing? It needs to be about things that are the ending. Richard, how you doing? The ending tends to be something that's not as serious. So by the end of the play, people are either married or they have risen in society. A simple way to look at it is that nobody dies, right? But when you're dealing with tragedy, thank you for the hearts. When you're dealing with tragedy, that is when either somebody dies. If you're reading a Shakespeare play, somebody's going to end up dead, right? Or there's a serious contemplation of life, right? Then there will be, sometimes there'll be something that people in the society are demoted. So that's what you're looking for when you're distinguishing the two between comedy and comedy and tragedy. But just remember, drama is an umbrella term, right? That might be on the test. All right, so in terms of comedies now, there's so many different subcategories, right? And one category is high comedy and low comedy, another category. So the high comedies are comedies that are more intellectual in terms of their jokes. Hey Mermaid, the humor is more, deals with a little bit more social commentary, political satire. That would be considered high comedy, highbrow comedy. Low comedy is the stuff that's puns, slapstick humor, the clowning around, the pie in the face type of stuff. That would be lowbrow comedy. So it's kind of like the difference between, if we're talking about TV shows, perhaps the difference between like Frasier and Martin. All right, and there's no difference in the value, right? Not one is better than the other. It's just that in terms of categorizing them, one would be considered high comedy, another can be considered low comedy. And then of course, a really, really popular type of comedy is called a farce. And that is when the situations are so crazy and people are running around mistaken identities and misunderstood situations. I don't know if you ever saw on, you might have watched it on what, Nick at Night or something like that, but Three's Company, I've been able to watch, the original shows, but if you ever watch Three's Company, that would be a situation like that where it's like, Jack misunderstands something or mishears something, and then the rest of the show is about him trying to get out of a situation or whatever it is. So that would be considered a farce. All right. And I'm just going to list some other types of comedies, and I'm not going to spend that much time with them, but as long as you understand those basic types, comedy of manners is a more high-class, aristocratic type of comedy. Romantic comedies, people love going to see those. dealing with love, sentimental comedies, basically dealing with everyday life. Then there's also comedies that deal with everyday ideas. Those are considered comedy of ideas. Plays that deal with social issues, but in a comedic way. And another popular type is a dark comedy. Those are the comedies that are, even though nobody might not end up dying at the end, there is a morbid quality to the play, to the story. Now I'm going to go into tragedies, and tragedies are going to deal with, again, like I was saying, a serious look at life, right? Serious situations, serious circumstances. And one vocabulary word I have for you, where is that? All right, so my vocabulary word for you today is hubris. All right. I had to write that backwards, so so hubris. And that is a really good word because it deals with a character flaw, right? So a character has a level of pride and a level of arrogance that basically brings that character down, right? It's their pride and their arrogance that brings that character down, and that's what hubris is. Hold on one second. All right, so one of the things about Greek tragedy is that it does contain a lot of hubris. The characters are very big. Think of Oedipus Rex. Hey, Marcia, how you doing? Think of characters like Oedipus Rex, who their own pride and their desire to find out the truth eventually leads them to destruction. So again, I was saying that this is a video lecture of one of my lessons for my introduction to theater students. All right, so that's what this is. All right, realism, really popular word. All right. It's another good word to know. When you're dealing with realism, you're dealing with plays that try to mimic how, oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, so it's about plays that are trying to mimic reality, right? So, and I don't like to use a word to define another word, right? So you're looking at plays that see the world as it is and try to imitate that in a theatrical setting, right? So, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the comment. Oh, don't forget to give me some hearts on that. So, hey, Chris, how you doing? So, in dealing with realism, you want to deal with stories that are similar to what life is like. And the way I like to look at that is, if you're doing a play, and let's say you're designing a set for that play, realism is, and there's a wall that's going to be a brick wall. Realism says that it's not, when you're actually making that brick wall, you're not actually buying bricks from the store and putting that wall together. You're going to paint something or create something that makes it look like a real brick wall. So it's not really a brick wall, but it has the illusion of that. So think about realism in those terms. And how this comes about, which is this is kind of interesting, right? So there's a few different things that happen when realism starts to take shape in modern theater. Before a term like realism started to take place, plays were similar to Shakespeare. There was a heightened sense of speaking, very poetic. So the speakers were, hi Insta, how you doing? The speakers were poetic. The characters were poetic. There might be very melodramatic, very heightened type of theatrical performances, right? So what started to happen would be things like in 1840, photography is invented. So before photography, everything had to be painted that people wanted to show nature and paintings of people. You had to paint that. Photography comes into place, and now you can actually get what somebody really looks like and hang that up on your wall. You can get a picture of nature and what it really looks like and hang that up on your wall. So that was a very key aspect on how the future of realism deals with. Then the light bulb is invented, and that again allows not only theater to be taking place inside, but it allows for illumination in terms of ideas and in terms of what you can do, how you can extend your day, your work day, right? Then a few important books get written. The Origin of the Species by Charles Darwin. Sigmund Freud writes a book called Interpretation of Dreams. And Karl Marx writes the Communist Manifesto. And those books had a profound paradigm shift in how we think about theater and how we think about ourselves in general, because it allowed people to reflect more on themselves, reflect more on personal ideas, and that started to turn into what we have in terms of modern realistic theater today. Some examples of those kind of plays would be Henrik Ibsen's A Dollhouse, Ghost, Hedda Gabler, really good play, I like that one. But then we go into extending realism into I guess you could say a hyper realism, which is called naturalism. Now remember that illustration with the brick wall. For naturalism, you're taking that brick wall and actually buying real bricks and putting that together that way. So that would be an example of naturalism. All right, so let's see here. Some other types of isms: symbolism, expressionism, dadaism, surrealism. I like surrealism because think about Salvador Dali on stage. So it's ideas that are dreamlike, right? Things that are not real in perception, right? And so that would be like a wall that's supposed to be a brick wall, but instead of it being bricks, it's the shapes are like bricks, but it's made out of fur. You know, that kind of like weird, trippy, dreamy type of situation is surrealism. So a few examples of that would be like the Three Penny Opera. And